Thank you very much. Welcome this opportunity to talk about the Home Performance Index. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Irish Green Building Council, we launched 5 years ago at the very depth of the construction recession. And it was really members of the industry, property and construction sector who came together to decide we need to find a way of remaking construction to make it sustainable to meet our climate goals. So you can see some of our members there. And if you're not a member, we'd say, please get involved. We work on a lot of public good projects for example, we're currently working with the Department of Energy to develop the national renovation roadmaps. We're working with ITB and LIT to develop construction training for ordinary construction workers to improve quality. So I suppose we were launched very much with the view of taking a whole systems approach to the built environment. We have tended in the past to focus on one narrow drill hole in sustainability, that of energy efficiency, but we really have to consider the whole sustainability question. I think this diagram very succinctly defines our challenge. We have declining resources, declining ability of the planet to meet our needs. Our population is expanding to 9 billion. We have to feed them, we have to clothe them, we have to house them, with ever declining resources to do that. So we have to get to a point where we can sustainably meet all of the needs of our world's population. And that means for the construction industry, we have to, as John O'Hara said earlier, we have to husband our land resources. We have to protect land from overconsumption because we need to feed our growing populations. We need to protect biodiversity, and we can only do that by husbanding land, husbanding the huge mineral resources that go into housing and into other buildings. And we also have to look at a whole building life cycle approach. We've tended to focus just on the energy in use, but we also need to consider the full cycle from the extraction of the products that go into a building right through the construction, the maintenance, through the 60 to 100 year life cycle of the building, the demolition and the recovery of the products. So with that in mind, I was asked, we already work with the US Green Building Council and the BRE to promote rating systems, whole systems rating systems like LEED and BREEAM. But our board, the key gap on the market was for housing. There is nothing apart from the BER to assess sustainability in housing. So I was asked to develop with our members a system to certify sustainable housing. And the key thing is that must be based on the 3 pillars of sustainability: social, environmental, and economic. Because without an environment, we can't have a society. Without a society, we can't have an economy. And this is part of the challenge. This is the type of development in Ireland. You must bear in mind that our carbon emissions are very different from the rest of Europe. Our largest emissions come from agriculture. Our second largest emissions come from transport. And it is this type of planning has led to that type of profile. We cannot meet our climate targets from the built environment just by looking at energy efficiency. We have to look at planning, spatial planning, and again, how do we create walkable, usable communities that minimize overall carbon intensity. So we developed with our members the Home Performance Index, and this is supported by the EPA, and this is very much to provide a rating. I was talking to a couple of developers the other day about this, and they said to us, you know, we're very competitive. We always want to do better than the chap across the road. And this is part of this approach. It will develop into a rating system where developers can sell their development on the basis of the quality. So, in effect, it's a label that a developer can use to sell his development. So it's something that appears on the advertising like the BER. The problem with the BER is probably no longer fit for purpose because every development now is in A3. It only tells you a very small piece of information about that development. And why on earth would a developer want to get certified, you would ask? I mean, surely this is going to add cost, it's going to add complexity. Well, the key question, over the next 25, 24 years, there is going to be a massive increase in funds available for green bonds. In 2013 or 2014, the amount of green bonds available tripled globally to 13 billion. This is expected to grow to 85 trillion. Now that's a lot of cash. Now banks don't want a whole lot of complex information or investment funds like the European Investment Fund, they don't want a lot of complex information about whether something is green or not. They just say, give us a label. Give us one label and tell us it's green. That's all they want. If you got that, the developer comes in, he's got the label, grand, here's 20 million, off you go and build. So this particularly is important for social housing because of that 85 trillion, a lot of that can be invested in social housing infrastructure. The next thing that's going to happen, we've been talking with the European Mortgage Federation, they are looking at green bonds. Green mortgages. So a green mortgage is effectively a product that gives a discounted mortgage rate on any green certified product. Now the banks in Scandinavia are already doing this. Holland, Sweden, Norway, they will only lend to developers that have multi-criteria certification, have their development certified by multi-criteria. So that means more than just an energy efficiency standard. So the BER isn't going to cut it. An A1 BER isn't going to cut it. You're going to have to look at the whole holistic sustainability approach. So we have developed this with our members and with leading developers. We went out to we developed 2 years ago, we developed an initial set of indicators. We went out, asked a number of the leading quality developers, can we try this on your scheme? They were delighted, they wanted to see how they performed. And from that feedback, we were able to develop a second iteration of the scheme to create a fairly robust set of indicators that we could then apply. So the system is very much based around the 3 pillars of sustainability. You have environmental, economic, and health and well-being, standing in for social. So these are the key things that we want to communicate to the home buyer. So for example, on the environment, we look at things that, like John O'Hara talked about, land use. And a lot of these, this is quite a simple system. It's designed to be relatively cost effective. There are over 35 indicators in it, but 14 of those are mandatory that you must assess, but many of those indicators are things you already have. So it's this is our first, remember this is the first system developed for Ireland, so it's fully integrated into BCAR, it's fully integrated into the draft development plans. So you will have the information to hand. So it asks questions like, what's the density of development? What's the land use? What's the water consumption? And we back this up with a lot of very good, simple calculators. So for water consumption, we're providing you with a calculator. You just have to ask your bathroom supplier, give us a bathroom schedule with, that meets the HPI target. They can do all the work. It looks at energy. It just uses the BER for the energy credits and embodied impacts. Now, at its simplest, the embodied impacts is based on the size of the dwelling because that impacts how much materials will be used within the building. But over the next 5 years, we expect embodied impacts to become a currency or a language as usable as the BER. We will be working over the next couple of years to make the calculation of embodied impacts as simple as creating a BER. Another key critical issue is health and well-being. Now, there are a number of mandatory things that you must meet in this system in order to get basic certification. It must have a ventilation. It must have a proper designed ventilation system. We won't accept hole-in-the-wall ventilation. Most of the developers agree with this. It doesn't work. You must have a basic level of daylighting. And then you can go on if you want to look at other issues like the monitoring of the air, the specification of VOCs, etc. Acoustic performance is incredibly important. You already have to measure that. So all you have to do is give us the test certificates and we'll see how much beyond building regulations the building performs. Economic. There's one mandatory requirement there. What's the overall heat demand? And this is designed to encourage architects at an early stage to design quality, compact development. So it's not difficult. So I suppose this is the equivalent in Passive House would be the highest standard of fabric efficiency. We haven't gone that far, but we've set people on the path to it. And that's automatically generated in your BER report. We've developed an energy and cost calculator. And then quality assurance. Now, we have used 4 key indicators to assess the quality of the development. The level of air infiltration is set at 3. That's a good standard that all our developers were achieving already. So that's a very good indicator of the quality of a contractor. If he's hitting 5 or 6, you have to worry about everything else that he's doing as well. So if you're getting under 3, you know that there's a level of quality. Thermal bridging factor, the construction team skills. We're encouraging all contractors to be members of CIRI. We're encouraging them to train their workforce, to undertake training such as QualiBuild that Mark Keys talked about this morning from the ITB. And then design teams. Have your design team skilled up? Is your architect familiar with DEEP? Has he trained up in energy assessment? Has your quantity surveyor, is he familiar with how to carry out an embodied carbon calculation? So the more points you can gain under the system, the more we can rely on the quality of the design team. And finally, sustainable location is massive. This is an incredibly important part of sustainable development. So we have a calculator that assesses how close you are to public transport, how close you are to schools, transport, education, all of the services you need, the shops, and finally, flood risk. So you're able to generate a simple index for the quality of the site before you start. And this is quite simply generated on Google Maps. We have a full set of tools developed to assist the design team carry out this assessment. And finally, how do we present this to the homeowner? There's a lot of technical criteria in there, and a homeowner's going to ask, what's in it for me? And a lot of homeowners aren't necessarily interested in the green aspects of a sustainability rating system, but they do want to know, what does it do for their family? Will it create a better indoor quality for their family? Things like how walkable neighborhoods. That's incredibly important. We have an obesity epidemic. How does the location of that dwelling improve the long-term health prospects of the family? we're providing costs. How much will it cost to run that house? How much will it cost in terms? We will be introducing water charges eventually. We will get around to that at some stage. So there will be a cost to water. So if you're interested, at the moment we're running the program with the EPA. We can support a number of developers to go through this process. We have a number of developers who have signed up for certification, and we expect to have those certified by the autumn. But we can take a few more developers through the certification process. If you want to find out more, please contact me, and we'd be very happy to talk through the system. We'll deliver a CPD to your design team. We'll take them through how to carry out the certification, the information that we need, because really this is the way the market is going in Europe. You've got to get used to it. It's already happened in the commercial sector. You're not going to rent commercial property unless it's LEED or BREEAM certified. Within 5 years, you're not going to rent or sell a house unless it's HPI certified. Thank you. Thank you very much.